Hi students, my name is Emma Reed. I am an 8th grade math teacher, and today we are continuing our exponents and scientific notation units, and we are learning the definition of scientific notation. And the big question for us today is, what is scientific notation? What are the features of an expression written in scientific notation? So for today, before we do our warm-up, I want you to just look at the words scientific notation and make a prediction about what you think scientific notation might be and who might use it and why. So take a moment and think about that first. And then by the end of the lesson, we'll have a real answer for what it is and what the features of an expression written in scientific notation are. So let's move on now that you have a prediction in your mind, to our warm-up. And today's warm-up under our introduction launch on slide A is a number talk. So you may have done a number talk in class before, and if not, just follow the directions. If you have, you can use the strategies that your teacher taught you. We're going to find the value of each expression mentally and then use words to describe what you did. So the most important thing about the number talk is that you do this in your head without writing any calculations down. If you want to check your calculations later, fine, but for this warm-up, do not write anything down. Just look at each expression and try to calculate the value of that expression in your mind now. Once you have an answer in your mind, you're going to write down your strategy for how you came up with that answer. So the most important thing is that you clearly describe how you came up with your answer, and the answer itself is sort of second place. Okay, so the first priority when you're writing your answer is to describe your thinking about how you came up with that value as clearly as possible. Now is a great time to share with a partner if you're able to work with one. Otherwise, just make sure when you read your answers back to yourself that they would make sense to anyone who read them. When you're ready, we'll move on to slide B. And on slide B, we're finally learning our definition of scientific notation. So read along with me while I read it out loud to you. The speed of light through ice is 2 3/10 times 10 to the 8th power meters per second. This way of writing the number is called scientific notation. Scientific notation is useful for understanding very large and very small numbers. A number is said to be in scientific notation when it is written as a product of two factors. The first factor is a number greater than or equal to 1, but less than 10. For example, 1 2/10, 8, 6 35/100, or 2 8/1000. The second factor is an integer power of 10. For example, 10 to the 8th power, 10 to the negative 4th power, or 10 to the 22nd power. So imagine 10 to the 8th power, and we've worked with powers of 10 for a while. If a scientist made a measurement that was in the 100 millions, or even 10 to the 9th power in the billions, why do you think a scientist might want a shorter way to write that number? Think to yourself. So let's just always remember that when we work with something in math, somebody came up with it for a reason. It was logical to them. So hopefully you have some ideas about why scientists might want to take really, really long numbers and write them in a shorter way. And then also we want to look at these two bullets, for these are our two rules we need to keep going back to make sure that if we try to write something in scientific notation, we're doing it correctly. So first, we have to make sure that our first factor is greater than or equal to 1, but less than 10. And our second factor has to be an integer power of 10. So it has to be raised to a number that can be positive or negative, but it has to be a whole positive or negative number. Okay, so now we're going to move on to slide C in our Explore section. And on slide C, we can read the directions. So it says the table shows the speed of light or electricity through different materials. Highlight the speeds that are written in scientific notation. Write the others using scientific notation. So first, look at these numbers and highlight the ones that you think already meet our 2 rules to be in scientific notation. So I'll show them here, and we can check them off. So first, check to see, is my first factor greater than or equal to 1 but less than 10? So narrow it down to the numbers that go along with that qualification. And then secondly, it has to be raised to an integer power of 10. So now you should have highlighted whatever numbers meet both of those qualifications. And then the ones that are not already in scientific notation, you're going to fill in the speeds using scientific notation. So take whatever time you need on this slide to highlight the numbers that are already in scientific notation and rewrite the speeds that are not in scientific notation using scientific notation. Take whatever time you need, and then we'll move on to our last slide of our Explore section for today, which is examples and non-examples. This is a great way for us to keep track of new vocabulary that we learn. Today we learned about scientific notation. A notation is a way of writing or noting something. So on this slide, this will help us remember scientific notation for the future. First, write 2 examples of numbers written in scientific notation. Then explain how they meet the definition of scientific notation. Remember, go back to our 2 rules. And then you're going to write 2 numbers that are not written in scientific notation and explain how they do not meet the definition of scientific notation. So be clear about which of those 2 rules is your number breaking, or does it break both? Finally, on slide E, when you're ready, we're going to summarize our learning for the day and answer our big focus question from the first slide. What is scientific notation? And what are the features of an expression written in scientific notation? Make sure you keep track of these slides because we're going to keep talking about scientific notation for the next few days, and enjoy the rest of your day.